Okay, so my phone and my computer are being weird. So for this crime and stitch, I pre-recorded a bunch of clips of me stitching, but I'm gonna do it as like a stitch with me kind of. I'm gonna keep stitching from where I'm at because I really want to finish this page. But the clips that are gonna be in this are old. They're from earlier last week. This week has been kind of hectic, but I wanted to get something out to you guys because this case, I'm telling you, I'm just addicted. I don't know what my problem is, but this is one of those things that I can watch over and over and over again and never get bored. And I always get just as outraged about it as I was previously. So, that being said, I think we should jump right in. Today we're talking about Making a Murderer and Stephen Avery. I know a lot about this just off the top of my head, but just so that I don't forget anything, I used for my notes, cosmopolitan.com did like a synopsis of season one of this. And so I'm kind of using that to guide my timeline. Because, like I said, this is one of those things that I could just watch over and over and over and over again and not get bored of it. So, yeah. So I guess let's kind of get started. Stephen Avery was born in 1962, and his parents are Alan and Dolores Avery. They run Avery Salvage out in Manitowoc County, Wisconsin, kind of in the Two Rivers area. From what I was reading, is the town that they're in. It's a big salvage yard, and a salvage yard, if you don't know, is like almost like a wrecking yard, I guess. Like they just have a bunch of cars and they part them out and they repurpose the cars and like sell the parts or what have you. So Stephen was born and raised there. He didn't have like a super high IQ. He actually tested very low on the IQ scale, coming in with an average IQ of about 70, which it just kind of I don't really like have a comparison, but he just had kind of a low IQ. A lot of people in the area really didn't like the Avery family in general, but from what I gather in the documentary, they got along really well and they had lived there for a long time, so they had presence in the community. Like people knew them. They were a relatively big family out there. Stephen got reported for several different crimes. He admitted to burglary in 1981. He pled guilty to animal cruelty at one point. He basically chalks it up to being young and dumb. In the documentary, if you've seen it, like he just, yeah, I was young and stupid. He in 1985, this woman Penny and her husband were out on a beach, and Penny took a jog, and she saw this dude, and he was dressed up in like a thick coat, and it was hot out because it was the summertime, and he was like, "Oh, it's a really good day for a jog, isn't it?" And she just kind of like ignored it, and then on her way back, if I'm understanding right, mind you, this is all like from memory and notes, and so if I get something wrong, that's why. But when she came back, she was attacked, and there were, she was assaulted and she was raped. I don't know if I can say raped. Would I say sexually assaulted? She was sexually assaulted. Anyway, she was beat up and she was sexually assaulted and basically left for dead. And the guy, took off. So, she was in the hospital and she couldn't read the statement that she couldn't see to write a statement. So the sheriff's deputy that was there that day helped her write a statement, and she couldn't see it. So she just like verbally like told the deputy this is what happened to me. This is what he looked like. This is what, happened. And as she described him, the deputy was like, "Oh, that sounds like Stephen Avery." And the police officers already didn't like Stephen because he had been in a lot of trouble, and his cousin was married to a sheriff's deputy, and he had a bit of a history with her. he like tried to run her off the road with a car, and he pulled a gun on her for spreading rumors about him. And so this lady that was in helping Penny with her statement was like, "Ah, yeah, he's a really dirty guy, blah blah blah, we have to force him to take a shower when he comes in." And she denies that all later in her deposition, don't worry. But anywho, so Penny in the hospital at some point is shown a picture of Steven, and then they bring her like a photo lineup, and Steven's is the only picture that she recognizes in that photo lineup. So obviously she picks Steven out of that lineup. He's identified, I don't remember the second way that he's identified, but he's identified twice. And during both times, he's always like, "Hey, I didn't do this to her. I didn't do this to her. It's terrible what happened, but I did not do it." And so, but he gets sentenced anyway, despite having several witnesses to testify to his whereabouts during that day. He gets sentenced to 32 years in prison. And I'm trying to see, he ended up serving 18 years in prison for that crime. He got divorced. He missed, his kids growing up. He missed a lot of his life, and it's sad. Like, there's more than one victim in this case. He got divorced. He, all that stuff. Lori split from him and took the kids, and I think she stopped bringing the kids to even see him. So when he got exonerated, basically there's two different kinds, like you have different kinds of alleles, which are your genetics based on your specific genes. And it turned out that Penny and Steven had the same types of alleles. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out what I did here. So they had the same types of alleles. And what that means for Steven is that when you look at their cases, when they checked out these hairs that were taken from Penny, and there was a third set of alleles. And so that said that, Steven couldn't have done that because somebody else's genetics were there. And it wasn't Penny's husband either. And it turned out it was this guy, Gregory Allen, who's in jail for something else. All this stuff. And it just seems like a big mess. He was released. And while Steven was in prison, Gregory Allen actually assaulted 2 other women during that time. When he was released, it was September 11, 2003. He was like, there's a breeze, you can see everything. He was so excited to be out and to see his parents. That's kind of when we jump into Making a Murderer episode 1. You see all the media and everything. He, they found, for some reason, the DOJ found no wrongdoing on the part of the county. But, there was a lot of evidence that came forward that said, in 1995, Andrew Colburn, he got a phone call about Steven, somebody had said that, somebody was in jail for something that he did, and an informant, somebody called the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Office, and Andrew Colburn answered, and that information, there was no report written about it or anything, until the day after Steven got released from prison, which is a little suspicious, but whatever. And it turned out that they were talking about Gregory Allen, who had confessed to it to somebody else. Steven filed a lawsuit against the county for his wrongful conviction, for time loss with his family, and, the emotional toll that it takes on you. And nobody really said anything to Steven regarding it, being like, hey, you need to be careful, lay low, because you never know what can happen if, if you're suing the county that you live in. Maybe you probably shouldn't live there. Maybe you should have moved, but whatever. Anyway, so kind of fast forward, Steven's just doing life and dealing with everything that comes along, helping his parents with the salvage yard and at the house and all that good stuff. And in 2005, he had an advertisement up with Auto Trader for his sister's van. And they all kind of lived in close proximity. Like, they all lived, like, right next door to each other, kind of. And his sister, Barb, was selling her van, so Steven arranged to have photos taken of it for Auto Trader, which he worked with a lot. And Teresa Hallbach is a photographer for Auto Trader. And so she came over and she came to take pictures of the car. And according to Steven, she came over in the afternoon. She took the pictures and she left. That was all she needed to do there. So that's good. You know, she's done. But Teresa was never seen again. Steven's was the last house that she was at. She was only 25 and it was on Halloween 2005. And she, by kind of, I think it was by November the 3rd or 4th, Teresa's parents hadn't heard from her. And so her mom called and reported her missing. There was like a search party that came and was arranged by her brother and like ex-boyfriend or whoever that was helping with the case. And what in the world? We're just gonna do this. And so they sent 2 people onto the property, the Avery property, and the RAV4 was actually discovered on Steven's, the parents' property. So then at this point, Steven was a prime suspect. However, there's a phone call from somebody, I think it was Clovern, calling in the plates of the car before the car was even found. And then, it was just weird. It just, they didn't really do anything further with the car at that point. But from after they found that, they pulled in a bunch of search parties. They closed off the property, and the Averys weren't allowed to come back. And it was basically said that, they needed to do a full investigation. So Manitowoc County was not allowed to be on the case because there was a conflict of interest. And trying to think, they found like bones and teeth remnants in a burn pit behind Steven's home, and that matched Teresa. And Steven was arrested on November 9th, and he was charged on November 15th. And after the 8th day of searching, they found Teresa's car key in Steven's room. The thing with that is that the guy who found it was James Link, and he is a Manitowoc County officer. So James Link was like, there's a key there. And so that's where Steven is like, well, why did, it brings up the question, how did you only find that on the 3rd day? There is an officer from Calumet County, the one that was supposed to be there, and they asked him directly on the stand, so, the last time you guys moved those slippers, you didn't see that key there? And he goes, the key wasn't there the last time we moved those slippers. And I feel like that's an incriminating statement. Like, that puts it so, like, all of a sudden that key appeared there. The other thing that's suspicious to me about this key is when they did genetic testing on it, the only DNA that was on it was Steven's. Like, if you use your car key every day, your DNA is going to be on it. Like, and it's just, it's crazy. So they found Teresa's license plates inside another car on the salvage yard. They found Steven's blood in, like, some weird spots inside Teresa's car. And then there's the key. So, like, it seems like they've got a pretty good case built up. But it just, I don't know. It just is a mess, it seems like. In February, they settled their lawsuit with Stephen Avery in the county. And then after, let's see, he had the money to hire Dean Strang and Jerry Buting. And Jerry Buting, I just found out, has a book that I really want to read. I put it on my book list in my bullet journal. And so then in, let's see, March of that year, they bring in Brendan Dassey, who is Stephen's 16-year-old nephew, in for questioning. And he, one, is a minor, so he should have had legal representation as well as a parent there. He was questioned alone. And that's that's a huge red flag for me. Like, why would you question a minor alone? I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense. And if you watch the entire video, like, Brendan is a slow learner, according to his mom. And it's just sad. Like, he is sitting there and he is, like, you can see him kind of thinking through stuff and guessing. He confessed to, like, helping Stephen with the murder or whatever, but it just seems like it was very coerced. And they fed him the only piece of information that only the killer would have known, that Teresa got shot in the head. And they fed that to him. And that's the only time he ever mentioned, a gun or anything like that, was when they fed him that question. Like, it just, I don't know. It was, he, at first, when he did his first statement, he denied everything. He said he brought Stephen a letter and then he went home. And it just was like this whole thing. So the first season of Making a Murderer is about the court case and, like, what happens with Stephen and Brendan and their trials. And it's a lot. They found that the lid of the test tube that they had of Stephen's blood from 1985 had a little hole prick in it, and they argued that a syringe could have been in there to pull blood. They also didn't find any of Stephen's fingerprints inside the car. So his lawyer said, this is I feel like they presented a lot of reasonable doubt. It was a lot. Trying to think. Let's see. So Stephen Avery in June of 2007 was sentenced to life in prison without parole, and Brendan got sentenced to life with possibility of parole in 2048. Stephen does an appeal that got denied, and he started, like, pulling his own case files to try and build his case for himself. Brendan filed an appeal. It got denied, and they actually hired a new lawyer, as well as I think something about the place that does wrongful convictions, they've gone in on it, and her name is Laura, and she's big on this, and she's ready to, like, argue for Brendan. It's just really sad. I think, there's a lot of things that go into, like, what exactly happened, and then we get into season 2, and I want to do a separate video of that one, because I think that it'll be really fun. I watched season 1 of Making a Murderer before making this video, and I also listened to a couple podcasts. So a couple podcasts that I love for true crime are Making a Murderer and True Crime Obsessed, and I also am big on Obsessed with Disappeared right now. And those are my 3 mains that I listen to. I also love Morbid. So if you guys want to check them out, you can. I'm going to try and insert some clips in here while I can of me stitching earlier this week, so you have some stitching with it. And if you have any questions, or if you want me to cover something else, let me know in the comments below. Kind of some admin things. My Etsy shop is listed down below as well. If you want to even just go click on it and look at it, all the views help me out. My Instagram is @MelissaDoesTheThings for all of my stitching related content and bullet journal stuff. And my regular one for my Etsy shop is @MelissaAndCreates. So if you want to check me out. Also, my Buy Me a Coffee link is down below, and all of that goes towards my birthday start. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you next time. I'm going to do part 2 really soon, so I'll see you soon. Bye.